International Relations of City Montessori School, Lucknow. It happens to be the world's largest school, a single school which has 55,000 students, and it has 18 campuses in one single city. It's recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's largest school. It was honored with the UNESCO Prize for Peace Education in the year 2002, and ever since its inception, the founders of the school have dedicated themselves to the cause of world unity and world peace. Dr. Jagdish Gandhi is a pioneer in the field of world unity when it comes to promoting the concept of world parliament in Lucknow as well as in different parts of the world. And together with WCPA, we have been doing a lot of events, and we still hope to do many more conferences together. Dr. Glenn Martin has been to our school for more than a decade, n number of times, and we still continue to work together. Today evening, I'm going to show you a small movie, and this movie will bring to us some current reality of how we can create a world parliament. Although each one of us has a different approach, and the founder of our school, Dr. Jagdish Gandhi, has taken an approach to kind of write to the President of the United States of America, which he considers the most powerful country in the world. And of course, the President of US is the key decision maker. The three endeavors that have been very instrumental in the formation of world bodies like the League of Nations or the United Nations, or whether it was creation of European Parliament, in one way or the other, US presidents had played key role. So in this movie, we'll go back to the history, and we'll see how US presidents put their role and why we are approaching President Donald Trump. We're not approaching President Donald Trump as a person, but we are approaching President Trump as a key leader of the world, because the President of the United States has power bestowed in him with the office of the President. So I hope you will watch this movie, and if you have any queries, I will be happy to answer them. Thank you.
President Donald Trump, President of the United States of America, do or die. Karo ya maro. We request you to keep your promise of uniting the world, or else we are all destined to perish in a nuclear war, which does not seem to be very far. The future of 7.5 billion people of the world, including 2.5 billion children of the world, and the generations yet to be born, has become progressively more insecure and unprotected during the past over 7 decades since the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the recent spread of international terrorism, global warming, stockpiling of weapons of mass destruction, and fear of Third World War and nuclear holocaust. It is now a situation of do or die for all of us. Dear President Trump, bravo and kudos to you. Only the brave can say what you have said. On the following days, some historic statements by President Donald Trump. You said on 15th December 2015 in Las Vegas, USA, while addressing US electorate during your campaign for US presidential election.
I think I'm going to bring unity to the world. That's what I do. I bring peace and I bring unity.
You said on 22nd May 2017 at Tel Aviv Airport during a visit to Israel.
Now we must work together to build a future where the nations of the region are at peace and all of our children can grow and grow up strong and grow up free from terrorism and violence.
You said on 24th May 2017 in the Vatican To His Holiness the Pope, I am more determined than ever to pursue peace in the world. You said on 19 September 2017 at the UN General Assembly, New York.
Making a better life for our people also requires us to work together in close harmony and unity to create a more safe and peaceful future for all people.
You said on 26 January 2018 in Davos, Switzerland, at the World Economic Forum.
And we are all stronger when afraid. Sovereign nations cooperate toward shared goals, and they cooperate toward shared dreams.
You said on 24th October 2018 in Mosinee, Wisconsin, USA.
We want all sons to come together in peace and harmony. We do. We do. We do.
We are all proud of you as the greatest world leader because you have promised to unite the world and make it a nice place worth living. A meeting of sovereign countries and formation of a world parliament like that of the European Parliament of 28 sovereign countries is the only way to unite the world and bring peace to the world. Some statements made about world unity by great world leaders. Some great world leaders have said, Mahatma Gandhi said, the future peace, security, and ordered progress of the world demand a world federation of free nations. And on no other basis can the problems of the modern world be solved. Winston Churchill, Prime Minister of Great Britain, had said, unless we establish a world government, it will not be possible for us to avert World War III. John F. Kennedy, President of USA, said, we must create worldwide law and law enforcement agency as we outlaw worldwide war and weapons. Dwight D. Eisenhower, President of USA, had said, there must be law steadily invoked and respected by all nations. For without law, the world promises only such meager justice as the pity of the strong upon the weak. Mikhail Gorbachev, President of USSR, had said, an awareness of the need for some kind of global government is gaining ground, one in which all members of the world community would take part. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, said, either the world will unite or it will perish. Dear President Trump, many world leaders in the past have said that world unity is required and it is the only solution to save mankind from complete annihilation. But only you have promised you will unite the world and establish peace on the earth. To US public and your voters, to His Holiness the Pope, and to the people of the world. Dear President Trump, you are the first world leader in the history of mankind who has committed to bring about world unity and world peace. You are the greatest leader of mankind who has said that I am going to bring unity to the world. There have been many world leaders before you who have only said that unity of the world is needed. But you are the only one who said that.
I think I'm going to bring unity to the world.
President Donald Trump created history by befriending North Korean leader. Mr. President Trump, being the leader of the most powerful country in the world, you have shown the greatest capability to leave the past behind by moving ahead for the good of the people of the world. With your power of unconditional love, you have lived the words of the great US President, Abraham Lincoln, who once said that the best way to destroy an enemy is to make him a friend. It takes a lot of courage and willpower to embrace a once hostile nation and announce that you share a very special bond with its leader. At the historic Singapore Summit on 12 June 2018, you shook hands with Chairman of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, and turned hostility into friendship. This was one of the rarest, unprecedented, and unthought of acts of your courage in the history of humanity. You have forgiven a once hostile country and saved the world from the scourge of war. At your press meet in the White House, you had said, anyone can make war, but only the most courageous can make peace. And I will do whatever it takes to make the world a safer place. In response to a question from Time magazine, Mr. President Trump, you had rightfully proclaimed that the past does not have to define the future. Adversaries can become friends. The world too has responded very positively to this development and has hailed you as a strong and decisive world leader who has shattered old diplomatic norms. You have created history as it was unthought of to get North Korea to take concrete steps towards denuclearization. It is time now to live the great legacy that you have inherited from the US presidents. Your three predecessors had used their decision-making ability vested in them as the US president and used their power to rewrite history as follows. American President Woodrow Wilson initiated the formation of the League of Nations in 1919 through the collaboration of 42 sovereign nations of the world to end World War I, to achieve the shared goal and shared dream of world unity and world peace. Although only 1/4 of the countries of the world attended this meeting of world leaders, and still the formation of League of Nations saved the world from the scourge of World War I. American President Franklin D. Roosevelt initiated the formation of the United Nations in 1945. Initially, through the collaboration of only 51 sovereign nations of the world to end the World War II, to achieve the shared goal and shared dream of world unity and world peace. Although nearly 1/4 of the countries of the world attended this meeting of sovereign world leaders, and still the formation of United Nations saved the entire humanity from the scourge of World War II. Today, 193 countries are its members, and for the past 73 years, there has been no Third World War. American President Harry S. Truman initiated the formation of European Union by implementing the Marshall Plan in 1948 through a donation of $13 billion to rebuild Europe, which ultimately led to the formation of European Parliament, initially through the collaboration of 6 sovereign European nations, which grew to include 28 sovereign nations to achieve the shared goal and shared dream of unity of European countries, where no nation is required to give up its sovereignty. Since its formation, it has succeeded in preventing wars between otherwise warring European nations and has brought lasting unity and peace in Europe. For the past 70 years, since the formation of European Union, there has been no European war. Dear Mr. Trump, like the above 3 far-sighted and visionary US presidents, you must now call an urgent meeting of sovereign countries of the world, with even a few countries attending initially, to collaborate to form a world parliament for a shared goal and shared dream of world unity and world peace. In such a new democratic system, every country will enjoy its sovereignty and at the same time will collaborate with other sovereign nations to achieve and realize the shared goal and shared dream of world unity and world peace. Unity is the biggest strength. Though a single nation or a rogue nation can threaten or challenge the authority of one nation, however, no single nation or a rogue nation can challenge the authority of the nations that have collaborated. For example, once the League of Nations, with collaboration of 42 sovereign nations, was formed, no individual nation or any rogue nation on earth had the courage to challenge its authority. Then, when United Nations was formed with collaboration of 51 sovereign nations, no individual nation or any rogue nation, howsoever, had the courage to challenge it. And similarly, no nation can oppose or challenge the European Parliament, which is the collaboration of 28 sovereign nations. Unity has strength, and even if a few like-minded sovereign nations can come together and collaborate for a shared goal and a shared dream of world unity and world peace to form a world parliament, no single nation or any rogue nation will have the courage to challenge or oppose this world parliament. We believe that you, President Donald Trump, will take a similar initiative to form a world parliament like that of League of Nations, the United Nations, and the European Parliament to save the humanity from the threat of World War III and a nuclear holocaust. Dear Mr. President, if Third World War were to happen today, the whole of humanity will be wiped out, as it will not be a conventional war like that of World War I or World War II or European War or any territorial war, but it will be a nuclear war, and no one would be left alive in this world. Then there will be no need left to form a world parliament. Abdul Baha, son of Baha'u'llah, founder of Baha'i faith, had said, "Do not busy yourself only in your own concerns or the concerns of your own countries alone. Let your thoughts be fixed upon that which will rehabilitate the fortunes of mankind and sanctify the hearts and souls of men." Dear Mr. President Trump, in you we see the strongest and the most compassionate world leader who can rehabilitate the fortunes of mankind by forming a world parliament. If you feel like consulting with us further on this issue, we can come to meet you in the White House. On behalf of 2.5 billion children of the world and the generations yet to be born, as well as the entire humanity, we are looking towards you for your action to call a meeting of world leaders in 2019 and form a world parliament in 2019. If you feel like consulting with us further on this issue, we can come to meet and consult with you. On behalf of 2.5 billion children of the world and the generations yet to be born, as well as the entire humanity, we are looking towards you for your action to call a meeting of world leaders in 2019 to form a world parliament. God bless you. Yours faithfully, Dr. Jagdish Gandhi. Founder Manager, City Montessori School, Lucknow. Convener, International Conferences of Chief Justices of the World, and self-appointed guardian of the world's over 2 billion children of the world and the generations yet to be born.
Thank you for your over now. Well, you just saw that how three American presidents took lead and united the world in one way or the other. Firstly, it was Woodrow Wilson, who called a meeting of 43 nations in the world to form a League of Nations in 1990, followed by Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1945, initiated the formation of United Nations. Thereafter, it was Harry Truman who donated. In present term, it was more than $100 million to the cause of establishing the European Parliament through the Marshall Plan. So all of these great initiatives were taken by US presidents, and our hope rests on the present President of the United States, who has promised that he will bring unity to the world. There's still almost 2 years left to fulfill his term as the US President, and we do hope that in 2019 he will call a meeting of world leaders. Dr. Jagdish Gandhi, our founder manager, has been convening international conferences of Chief Justice of the world for the last 19 years. And this year, 370 Chief Justices and judges from 72 nations participated. And overall, in the last 19 years, there have been more than 1,200 Chief Justices and judges from 134 countries of the world. Out of the 200 countries of the world have participated. So we are building momentum, and we very much respect Dr. Glenn Martin's initiative, and we would like to invite you all to come for, and we are requesting Dr. Martin to perhaps convene this session in Lucknow as per his convenience and the time that and the dates that suited him, because he's very busy. He's having lectures at the Radford University, but he's most welcome to do it either during our conference of Chief Justices, before that, after that. So that's what I have come to convey to you all from Dr. Jagdish Gandhi. And we hope that the day is not very far when world leaders will come together. We recently, on last month, on 11th November, there was a Paris Peace Forum called by the French president. You saw that leaders of 70 nations came together. They were celebrating 100 years of cessation of World War I. So after that, we hope that another world leaders meeting will be called by a greater world leader, and perhaps it would be President Donald Trump, to initiate the formation of a world parliament. Thank you. Yes, please. Professor Menon was at our conference very recently, last month, when the conference was being convened. Professor Menon came from Bangalore, and he was an eminent participant. Yes, please.
I must say that it was such a great pleasure and privilege for me that just 3 weeks ago, Shishirji and Jagdishji invited me as a special guest to the conference. What I saw there was unique. Nowhere in India you can see that. I am very proud of it. What did I see in Lucknow for 6 days, staying with them, understanding everything what they did? 200 young people within the age of 18 to 25, almost 18 to 25 age, they conducted a world parliament already in that campus. That was a tremendous success. When we speak loud speeches everywhere, we speak, the youth do not come forward, youth do not come forward. But my question is, as a self-critical analyst, are we the elders, the elders, giving them enough chance in our country? That is my question. They conducted a parliament. Half a day. The young people only. We all were sitting there and listening. I'm very happy you did. They were talking very sensible thing for the future of the world. They were not talking of Vivekananda or Abraham Lincoln. They were talking about the world today in front of them. What they see, what they experience. The gutters, the poverty, the violence, they were talking. I was so happy to listen to them for 4 hours. Then they said, unitedly they said, 200 young people. They said, we will take over the future of humanity. And that spirit, now it is our task. Recreate that spirit everywhere we go. Second, next day, there was a United Nations, modern United Nations, conducted by the youth again in the same campus. I was so surprised. All that we heard now, the history of the United Nations. These boys and girls sitting around like this, 200 of them, they understood what United Nations was meant for. They had studied, they came forward, then they looked at the present world from their own angle and they criticized United Nations. Very systematically. These two instances, they conducted a World Parliament already in Lucknow 3 weeks ago. Then they conducted a modern United Nations in which they dreamt of something different, which I consider, I'm very happy that Donald Trump said something positive. So I developed a philosophy. All leaders in the world are human beings. They have their own mistakes. Foolishness. But can we accept the positive and ignore the negative? This is my question. And that's what they have done in Lucknow. Third thing, the teamwork, again unique, the way they have conducted 6 days there. Day and night I was part of it. I was so thrilled. With one team of people. No 2 words, no 2 languages. More than 300-400 people, not 1 or 2. Jagdish Gandhi and Shishir Srivastava are 2 individuals, but they have created a network of their own. In that network, young boys and girls of their own institutions, morning to evening, evening to morning, running around and doing things. To me, it was an accelerating experience. So from these 3 instances, what I want to say, that we now as World Parliament, we have a great challenge. And we can do certain things in the next 2 years. In the morning I said something. If 1919, if we can catch hold of President Trump on his neck like this, in the White House, can we not do it? Go there. Say, you promised this to the world, as we saw. Why don't you do it now? We wanted to do it. So I think in this way we can play a role. Second, in India I have seen only 2 institutions so far. One, the best and the foremost is Lucknow, as we know. 20 years of work has gone behind it, and Glenn knows that more than anybody else about it. We have the power. But we do not unite, we do not come together, then we do not create a team. That is the failure of India, if I put it that way. We need a team. No one individual can do this. Okay. Now, I want to do something about a personal experience. 2 years ago, 2016, 2 years ago, October 12th. As I said in the morning, I look at a guy. Here is the so-called greatest democracy of the world. Why a woman has never challenged. So when Hillary Clinton decided, I went and challenged. I traveled around 2 months. All I said, spoke to Americans. Wherever I went, I had the best reception New Hampshire University, 300 students were there when they listened to me. I asked them, you talk democracy to the rest of the world, but you never had a woman in the White House. Why? So simple. I got the best results everywhere. 2 months later, I was coming back in. I was in New York City. And hearing this man, Trump, speaking to public in the Trump Tower on 51st Street, I barged into that. I gave crash. I was nobody. I went to Campbell to Hillary. So when I was walking, I saw this. I went. I asked the security guard, can I come? I have come from India. I'm just a visitor here. 2 days later, I'm going back to India. So can I attend? Sure, you come. So I came and occupied the seat. After 2 hours of his speech, Trump was speaking there to the audience. In the end, I sent a note to somebody. It was long, big audience. I asked, Mr. Trump, I have come here for a specific purpose from India. My question is, why the United States of America never had a woman in the White House? Can you answer me? After a few minutes, somebody brought me a little note, which I have kept carefully. I will show you in Bangalore. The note says, when I become President of America, this is October 12 I'm talking, October 12, 2016, next month was the election. So he said, when I become the President of America, you will enjoy a great vacation in Mexico forever. So I'm waiting for that great vacation in my life from President Trump. Sometimes I think he's a lunatic, but he too has a heart. He spoke some very interesting things. Can we know Veda, therefore? Not think of Vedas and Upanishads, not Philip, but 21st century can we make a better human life? With institutions like this, they are the future of me. Not only that, there's Tagore Shantiniketan in Calcutta. There's Gandhidham in Madurai. There's in Udaipur Institute. There are at least 8 of institutions in India. They all have certain ideas. Can we, some of them in India, get together with these people and also put our energy to developing a future and build a new power and a team which they have done wonderfully. I have no way to explain that way you have done it. That's all over India. Thank you.
I've got a copy of the CD. If anyone would like to take this video CD, I would be happy to see it. Perhaps I would like to present it to Professor Martin, and he will take it to one of you who would like to have it. We have already sent this video to, and it's available on YouTube. It's also being sent to the White House in more than one ways. We are creating a digital campaign through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course other mediums, so that this movie reaches the White House. And President Trump has already been written a letter by Dr. Gandhi on 4th November. There has been a letter that has been sent to the White House, and the White House has acknowledged, saying that we are carefully reviewing your message. So that's a very positive sign from Trump administration, and we hope that they will not only review but also act on what we have requested them for. Thank you so much.
We have a meeting scheduled tonight and another one scheduled tomorrow night. And we did not put any agenda down for the meetings. We thought that the agenda might develop on its own. and people would have thoughts and proposals and so on. And we have one tonight from Professor Chandra, who would like to talk to us about an initiative that he wants to see happen. And if you have other things on your mind about how we can proceed, as Swami Edovich said this morning, we have a tremendous potential, not only worldwide, but especially here in India, if we unite together and begin to think in terms of systematic education and media and all across the spectrum of human activities, NGOs and their work and so on, getting the word out about a world parliament and the need to ratify the Earth Constitution. There's great potential there.
I just have a thought.
Well, he was.
What is related to what you just said. Just a thought on what Dr. Glenn Martin just said. In one of the meetings, it would be good if we can pass a resolution on getting the WCPA registered. See, normally what happens is before we start an organization, there should be an intent of some founder members taking a resolve which becomes a backup for the organization. So from that perspective, maybe we can pass a resolution, if not now, at the end of this meeting tomorrow, so that an official record which will go into the minutes of the meeting saying that this congregation fully believes that WCPA India needs to be registered. So, and it will be signed by all members who are present in this congregation. So that becomes a document for the government to look at, so that there will be some backup document where if the statutory body reviews it, so they will feel that so many people are attending this meeting. So I just thought.
Excellent idea. Let's do that. Tomorrow we can draft.
I drafted.
You could draft. Okay.
Good evening to all of you.
Good evening, sir.
My name is Subhash Chandra and I am from Gurgaon. Presently, I am the President and Chairman of Global Harmony Association. This is the research organization, and this year we have published a book. The copy of one of the copy has been given to Dr. Glenn Martin. It has been co-authored, 175 co-authors from more than 35 countries. So all are welcome. And now, today in the afternoon, Dr. Hemlata Teresra, he gave the presentation on human rights education, a way to establish world parliament. So she has given the direction, and now is the time of actions through education. Because only as in the UNESCO charter says, it is in the mind, either violence or the peace. Violence is already in the mind of the people, in the children. Now we have to erase that violence in the mind of the people, and we have to put the knowledge of the peace, harmony, and truth and values. So in this connection, tomorrow I will be giving a presentation on peace and human rights education for building world parliament. So before this meeting is being held, so I am just suggesting, as all many teachers are here and many educationists or even IT people are also working towards this. And it is a time we should work for the peace journalism. Many people are writing for the violence, many people are writing for the negative news, and why they are writing? Because it gives them sensation, it gives them the sales value. But peace journalism on humanity and sustainable global peace is very rare. Now this is a time for all the people, for us, either in the university, colleges or in the society, we should change the mindset from violent consciousness to peace consciousness through peace and human rights education. So in this regard, I am suggesting Mr. Amit Pal, he is the Vice President of WCPA and also President of Delhi chapter. And we are having, as in the morning it was declared 3 Murtis, so I can use it, but at the same time I can use also 3 E's: education, experience and enlightenment. Through 3 E's, we can achieve everything. Education, experience and enlightenment. This is the age of enlightenment for peace and harmony. So what is my suggestion is, we can have it, Mr. Paul. If you can listen, it will be interesting for you also. Anyway, it's okay, I will contact you. So, it's okay. We are working together and we are thinking together for a noble cause. And everything we can leave on this world here, whatever we earn, either money or properties or anything. But we can leave it here, footprints of our karmas. That will be listed in the history of WCPA, it will be listed in your ITs or in the website. We can leave our body, but we can leave our words and actions here, right? So now I am proposing this. We can establish Asian Human Rights Education Research Center in New Delhi. With, Mr. Amit Pal can be executive director, Dr. Green Martin can be a chairman, and I can offer my services as a director of education, Asian director for human rights education for building world parliament. And all other university people who have given the lectures or not, everyone can participate. Mr. Narsman Murthy has also agreed. He can start with their chapter in the education, university, colleges. We can have the main aim of this center will be creating social awareness among the people to have the promotion of culture of peace and harmony through human rights education and finally to building the world parliament. So through teachers and universities, we can change the mindset of the younger people as well as older people. So in this verse, so I can, everything is very clear, and whatever Dr. Green Martin suggests, we can think over it. Thank you very much.
Oh, other thoughts or ideas, proposals? One thing I want to add to all the discussion of human rights that has been taking place today. Some scholars today, as you may well know, have distinguished 3 generations of human rights. As human beings began to realize that we're all the same. Now in terms of a widespread realization of that, it probably only comes from the 18th century when the great movements of democracy took place and people began to realize that lords and ladies were not different than ordinary people. They just happened to be born. And they began to realize that black people were not naturally inferior, naturally slaves, and so on. In the 18th century, they began to realize that people are all the same, and they came up with the idea of political freedom, right? People have reason, they said, and people can govern themselves. That's why we had the democratic revolutions. It's first in France, and first in the United States, and then in France. The people said, we can govern ourselves. That's what democracy means, that people are the ultimate source of sovereignty. People do the governing. So the so-called political rights were born in the 18th century. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, habeas corpus, due process of law, these political rights and freedoms that are so important for democracy. But the 19th century saw tremendous suffering because even within the so-called democracies, as the rich got richer and the poor got poorer, and you had vast people living in slums, working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week in sweatshops, because certain people had the right, the so-called right to own unlimited accumulations of private property. And that private property gave them the right to exploit other people. So during the 19th century, the century of Karl Marx and the progressive movement, people began to realize that we also had social and economic rights. We have the right to education, we have the right to health care, we have the right to limited hours of work, we have the right to safe working conditions. We have all these rights that came from the struggles of the 19th century. Second generation of rights. Well, what happened in the 20th century? As I was saying earlier in my talk in the 20th century, about the 20th century, it was a century in which we realized not only the unity of human beings, but we realized that we and our planet are one part of one system, one giant planetary system, and that we have the capacity to destroy our planet. And as the film we just saw pointed out so well, we have the capacity to destroy ourselves with nuclear weapons. And so some scholars have just been writing that we now have a third generation of rights. We have the right to peace and the right to a protected planetary environment. And it only makes sense, right? Because how are you going to exercise your political rights, freedom of speech, in the face of nuclear war, in the face of these destruction of the world in these wars? Peace destroys all political freedoms. I mean, war destroys all political freedoms, right? The destruction of the environment also destroys our first two generations of rights. The right to political freedom and the right to education and healthcare and the rest of the social and economic rights. So in the development of the UN system, beginning with in 1948, with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that included only the first two generations of rights. And as I mentioned earlier, it had just the one passage, Article 28, that says everyone has a right to a world order in which all these rights are protected. Well, that does not exist today, and it didn't exist then. But that world order is one that would have to include the right to peace and the right to a sustainable and protected planetary environment. So by the time we get to the year 2015 at the Vienna Convention of the United Nations, they're declaring something that points to the right to a protected environment. They're talking about in the Vienna Convention of the UN, they're talking about the indivisibility, right? You can't separate political and economic. All rights are indivisible because a human being is one indivisible creature with dignity. And so that dignity includes all these rights. And so that even there, they're pointing forward to the right to a protected environment. But we also have a right to peace, which means if we're going to have peace, we have to undo the system of so-called sovereign, absolute bordered, militarized nation states, because it's inherently a war system. So those are things that I think we can talk about and include as we're making programs about human rights. Right? We can investigate all those areas, from political, economic, and social to our recently emerging global understanding of human rights. Okay.
Friends, tomorrow afternoon, no, morning, you will find in the paper that I'm presenting a proposal for action much along the lines that we've been talking about now this evening. When I put a codicil to it, in my view, the initiation must come from the non-Western world. It must be led by the non-Western world. And that corresponds with everything that's been said this evening. I'll be qualified a little bit more. I strongly support what has been said. I don't hold out the hope for a response from Mr. Trump that our friends from Lucknow are hoping for. But that doesn't mean we don't push ahead with the program and initiate it through associations within the West. And it will strongly strengthen the case for action which you take here in this country if Dr. Martin is able to incorporate a sister association here. Because frankly, if the initiative comes from incorporated bodies in the US, you can forget about it. There's a mindset there which will not be easily broken.
Yeah, I'm Srikanth from Hyderabad, Dynamic Bharat Global Mission. It's a World Youth Organization. I'm the president, I'm the chairman of that. So it may be fertile with the resources, but when the spirit of the earth will be fertile only for children, inmates, live in harmony and peace. So the whole global effort is like, if you take economic, political, environment, all are unifocused. So meant for peace only. But like agriculture, horticulture, floriculture, in the same way, like we have to take peace culture also, that cultivation is required, peace culture, that has to be brought in the world. And second is, peace deal is not so easy, because it needs fitness, strong mind, and clear vision, sharp argument, and serene soul. So these, when we have to implement these all things, we should possess these all things, then only we can implement. And then the third thing is simplicity and concern make the perfect suit for all these things. And the ability to impact the vigor of great-minded people and network with the like-minded and touch, teach, and transform the weak. So these three things which we should implement in our peace program. And next is social, like those who are for peace, they have been called as a social animal, and those who are with violence, and they will be called as a wild animal. So we should bring these social elements more and more. We should focus. So, and empathy is the empty of from which peace emanates, and commitment is the cradle of the peace. And empathy drives will to serve, empathy, and intelligence designs the way to serve, so it shows the way. And spirituality steals and empowers both will and way, and the fire fixes the will. So these three things are important: empathy, and intelligence, and spirituality. These three things are definitely needed. And peace dynasty has to be established. Those who are working for peace, they have to be lineage should go continuously. So that dynasty has to be established in our program. And peace models so lucrative such models are there in like heroes, heroines. The same way peace modeling has to be made. So to attract the youth, because everybody is talking about national empowerment and women empowerment, but youth empowerment is also needed for representing youth empowerment. So we need some peace models to attract the youth for these missions. And this planning and peace activities, so planning should be done by peace activists, so planning, and execution by administrators, and funding by business magnets in India or across the world, and ground level execution by job or labor unions, labor forces. And right in front of like any peace meeting, if you need one peace pledge is necessary. So to unite everybody, so peace pledge is starting and ending the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Another thing that I think is important to announce is the initiation of the World Parliament University. It just happened a month ago that it was launched, and it's still, if you go to the website, you'll find that the website is not complete yet, but we're actually offering the first course, and it's in your packet. It's also on these cards on the table down in front, but they copied up the curriculum for it and put it in the conference packets as well. This means that we are actually offering degrees, master's degrees, from the World Parliament University. And the first master's degree will be in global issues and planetary solutions. And it's a real curriculum. If you look at it, it's got 6 different modules, and each of those modules will have 4 courses in it. And we've had interest, serious interest from here in India, from Bangalore, our friends in Bangalore, and they've taken initiatives to begin to elaborate that. And then we have an invitation. Phyllis and I are going to Guwahati in Assam later this month, and there's a gentleman there named Kumar Barua, who's the head of an educational organization that wants to launch a chapter of WCPA for Northeast India, along with a branch of the World Parliament University there in Northeast India. So since we're all online, and many of us are scholars, many of us are professors and teachers, I would like you to think about how you might contribute to teaching and being involved in the World Parliament University. You can look at the various courses that we've elaborated and think, whether or not you could maybe team teach the course or in some way offer your expertise in the development of that. Okay, thoughts? Other thoughts? Yes, Murthy.
Thanks, Dr. Glenn Martin. My thoughts are, in fact, this is a wonderful idea. As of now, it is contemplated to be a non-accredited university. My request to Madam and other academic people is, see, I am also connected with academics. I have been connected with few universities in India. I have been revising syllabi of many courses, doing subjects which are useful for the industry. See, basically, let me go one step back. What we are trying to do is, universities in public space are producing graduates every year on year. And great minds like Dr. C.N.R. Rao, they have been saying in this public places, saying that majority of these graduates are not employable. So we are giving them a certificate. But what is happening is, are we equipping them with enough technical competence so that if not a job, they get self-employed or they put their skill into practice and they find a living of that kind. So from that perspective, we as a team in Bangalore, we are working with a few universities in revising the syllabus, at least from a commerce background to which I belong. And many times, I take the help of linguistic teachers like arts teachers, language teachers, Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, Hindi teachers to give us inputs as to how the syllabus can be reviewed. So this is going on in one side. Now, when I was doing it, what I found out that is, in India we are governed by UGC, which is a statutory body sitting somewhere. They have a huge volume of rules to follow, like what our Vice Chancellor was saying in the morning. Our compliance is becoming a major headache. So we have a challenge. Now, we may bring out a wonderful course, more so in Indian mindset and in some of the developing countries. I don't say specifically only India. In developing countries, the mindset is, if it is not accredited, then why should we do it? Because they are spending their money, time, everything. So they just want to get some benefit out of it. So my request to madam is, if we can figure out, see some private universities like OPGTA, we will build a best of the syllabus, sitting together after a great deliberation. And if private universities can pass this syllabus in their board of studies, then it can become an independent course. And some of people like legal experts, accounting experts, language experts, we will go one more step forward and teach those subjects in the initial days. You understand what I'm saying? Yes. To make the program more attractive. See, there are so many innumerable courses, online, offline, everything is there, but if we add one more course, that may not make sense in the current context. So to make it more attractive, what we need to do is, we will have to teach that subject. So then what will happen, once or twice, some people get attracted and they pass the paper, then they get qualified, they get recognized in the society. Then, it makes all the difference. It will be, Dr. Glenn Martin, let me assure you, in India, my experience has been, in the rural areas, we have tremendous shortage. I mean, I can't just quantify it in words. We are lucky to be in cities, we get some good education, good teachers and all that stuff. This WPU can be a great asset, great assistance to the major population of the world. Why only India? Anywhere. So what I'm saying is, my request to people is, let us explore, if we know some universities who can sponsor this idea, let us get an idea, then we will make the syllabus so robust, so attractive, and if required, we will figure out some people who can take placements from these people. Say for example, if we have some, say for example, human rights expert, in fact, yesterday, just it may not be out of place, me and Menon were coming up with the elevator. One boy walked in and we just said hello to him, what do you do? He said he is studying law. Then, I said, oh, I didn't know. First of all, it was a news for me because I had never looked at the curriculum. What happened is, I said, oh, you have law here? I thought you are only a business school. He said, no, we are the best. We have the best of the legal education system here in this college. I said, interestingly, how many of you stay back in the country? I asked the boy. He says, all the lawyers will be in India because we are studying the exclusive Indian legal system, so we cannot go out. So what I'm saying is, even if a private university, if it gives out an education, the country will be benefited. So many legal experts will come to the system. So what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, we will figure out some university to sponsor this.
This university also.
We can try this also. No, we can try. Anyway, this university, Dr. Glenn Martin may initiate the discussion. If required, people like us can support. And in other places, if we have other private universities, autonomous bodies, where they have an advantage of their own BOS and BOE, where they can take some decision, and for ratification they can send it to the UGC and get the approval in the proper forum, will be a great idea. In fact, from that perspective, once this registration gets done, then we can even file to, and we can do a lot of additional courses. Just take a look at this.
And I got one suggestion.
Sure, please.
That is, but I think no university is teaching about the movies, the films, and that is one of the biggest business in the world.
Okay.
So if we can include that in our university, it will be a very useful and very unique opportunity for the students to grab. We can offer acting, direction, writing, everything.
Sure. I mean, we can explore. See, given to myself, I take 1 more minute. Sorry, I mean, I don't want to take your time. Before I forget, let me say this. You know, I have been connected with some craziest areas like archaeology. You know, archaeology. How many of you have heard of archaeology? Yeah. History. You know, conservation. There is, assume in your village, there is a dilapidated old building, 1,000-year-old building, which has some greatest paintings which is going away. Now, we should not allow it to fall down. I mean, there should be some scientific way to preserve it and leave it as it is to the next generation. People should say, this is a good idea. So, we can do many things, including the film and many things. So, all that can be done. Provided we have a correct network, so we will, my request is,
He's an actor. Mr. Roda is an actor.
you are welcome, you are already in our team, so it's only a matter of time we talk to you.
Yes, I am a actor. Chandrakala is a singer. So we can present the film district.
Oh, great. I think, Dr. Glenn Martin, let me tell you again, sorry. Go ahead.
I can suggest this university, they can combine international laws and human rights.
Some university where you can connect us?
They can combine.
Okay. No, we'll figure it out. See, if you have connectivity, let us start connecting with people, right? People.
All the statutory universities are UGC universities. The law departments have a unit of human rights diploma, degree, with them, this can be
This can be attached. I'm not denying it. See, the process of completing it, process of implementing it is really tardy. It takes years, 2 years, 3 years, I don't know. My experience with public universities has been, they are receptive, but they have their own process. I don't know. So, we don't have time.
maybe try private universities. Then we discuss about the some papers.
Sure, we can do that.
Yeah, so process.
We must see whether we can use the word university. That I think UGC does not allow anyone to use the word university. We have to check that.
No, what happens is, we will have to first get WCPA registered. Then WPU, World Parliament University, becomes an entity. It's not a separate. We have. No, we will apply to UGC there.
Okay, well, I think we can solve this.
Oh, we can solve it.
So we're all tired, I know I am. Let's plan on writing up these proposals. We've got a couple of them that we want to write up, and then tomorrow evening make it so that we can actually vote on them. So we can say, you know, we have affirmed this. It's an official thing. So I also want to urge you to look in the packet. There is a draft there called the Sonepot resolution, right? The conference, every year when we have a conference, we make a resolution. 2 years ago was the Pune resolution and so on. And so look at that, because that's a suggestion. It's a mere suggestion. And tomorrow evening, we'll want everybody's input on whether it should be modified or expanded or how we should actually phrase it. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll vote on it, and people can sign that they've affirmed it, and then we'll publish it as an official declaration from our conference after that. So please look at that before tomorrow night, so you're familiar with how we can go about this process. Okay, thank you so much.